Good morning, everybody. My name is Arjen Haverals, President of Milestone Scientific, and thank you for joining us on this webinar that we host for you today with the topic Anesthesiologists, Opportunities and Challenges for the Future. Some uh, reasons why we actually did this research was based primarily our company being successful in the dental industry, and then we moved from the dental industry into the medical market segment, in particularly the epidural injection and the epidural market segment in labor and delivery. And we conducted the research while entering this market segment because we wanted to know and understand the trends, the dynamics of the customers, being the anesthesiologist. I always think it is of extreme importance to have the voice of the customer in mind and insight for running any company to be able to tailor-made our services compelling and for their demands as well. So what you will hear in this webinar, and based on the research conducted with the Schlesinger Group, what you will hear is that it is all about change. And that's the reason why we have invited a champion in change, an author in change management, a change expert, which is Bob Miglani, who is also the CEO and founder of Embrace the Chaos. He has also written several books on these topics. And that was the reason for us to engage with Bob and also make Bob instrumental in conducting this research, but also more importantly, to present this research. So prior to hand over the word to Bob, I would like to make sure that please make sure that your microphone is muted. There is a chat function. You can already type in questions whilst we are running the presentation. We will do the research sharing and the study survey sharing with you first, and then later on we will end up with a Q&A. So by ending this, Bob, please take it away and share with us the very exciting findings of this market research.
Arjen, thank you so much. I am so delighted to be with you today, Tuesday. I'm really excited because I get a chance to talk to you about change in the context of something very important. Our heroes, our frontline heroes, physicians, anesthesiologists who are in hospitals working every day. So I'm delighted to share with you today the results of the survey that Milestone conducted. So if you have issues, if you need something, please put the information on the chat and we will respond to you. Aubrey is offline, but she's on the chat and she's monitoring that. So what I want to do today is to share with you what you came to hear about what are anesthesiologists thinking about the future of their jobs, their profession, their life, their career. How do they perceive the future to be? So this survey was conducted as last year, in September last year, using an online physician panel. The sample size was 50. They were all board certified in anesthesiology. They routinely perform epidurals for labor and delivery, which we expect anesthesiologists to do. Majority of the time they're spent in a hospital setting. And what we wanted to do, and what Milestone and Arjen and the team wanted to do, was to explore the emotions experienced recently. There's a lot going on with COVID, with so much change in hospital setting. And we wanted to specifically focus on the state and what they perceive to be is the future, perceived threats, perceived opportunities, the concerns around epidural, specifically epidural, which is they're performing on a day-to-day basis. And then just challenges and opportunities for the future. Some of the data on the sample size, on the anesthesiologists that were interviewed. Most of them have been around for a while. So 44% have had 11 to 20 years experience after completing residency, and some 30 years. So these are anesthesiologists who've been around the block, if you work, and they've performed a lot of epidural procedures and labor and delivery procedures. The gender, a majority were male anesthesiologists. This is a function of the research, of the sample size. Professional roles, 100% perform anesthesia. 46% of them are teaching. They're in hospitals, they're in institutions where they teach. Another 40% of them are department heads of anesthesiology department, and some do research. So this gives you a sense of the research approach. This was done again in September last year to September 25th to September 29th, 2020. And then it was an online survey done. Some of the findings, some of the key findings, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of key points here. And then I'm going to share with you some of the detailed responses that we heard from anesthesiologists, okay? So some of the key findings. Number one, a big finding. Anesthesiologists are currently feeling intense negative emotions. They're frustrated, they're stressed, they feel a lack of control over their professional destiny. I can't stress this enough. Anesthesiologists today, according to the research, are feeling stressed, frustrated, and loss of control over their destiny, their professional destiny. And they're feeling concerned, additionally, about two big things: liability and risk. You say, well, liability and risk, what do you mean? They're working in a hospital. Yes, liability and risk. They're feeling that pressure and that uncertainty. 88% of them say that they need new thought leadership. When we asked about what they feel, why, or what they think about the future, only 16% believe it's headed in a positive direction. So we covered a number of different topics. This is a core summary. If you want to look it over, we're going to share these findings with you later on. But let's go into a little bit more detail, because I think it might be helpful for you to understand what questions were asked and what the responses were, the accurate data responses were. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so the questions are laid at the bottom here. So it says Q, and the questions are there, and the responses are up here on the top right, and some of the core points are here on the left. That's how you can read the slide. I know the slide is busy, but we wanted to share with you the accurate data, comprehensive data, so you can make the interpretation for yourself. I have a view on how this is going. So let's go into it. So the first question was, please state how intensely, if at all, you've been experiencing, you meaning anesthesiologists, have been experiencing the following related to your professional role as an anesthesiologist over the last couple of weeks, okay, just over the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, a large part of them felt productive. And as you can see here, 78% feel productive, trusted, successful. So positive emotions, 70% resourceful, respected, 56% optimistic, not so much so. Inspired, less so, 30%. Only 30% say they feel inspired. Now let's look at negative emotions, okay? 56% feel time pressure. This is a recurring theme that you're going to see over and over again. The time pressure to perform an epidural procedure is weighing heavily on anesthesiologists. Massively time pressure. Uncertainty over their future. Frustration, stress, no control. This theme of lack of professional control over the professional destiny and lack of clinical autonomy, not so much so. So this gives you a sense of emotions, the emotions that anesthesiologists are feeling. Now, a lot of professions are feeling emotion. Aryan, give me a sense of, you've been in this space of dealing with physicians quite a bit. What is the feeling like for other professions potentially? Is this something that's just isolated, you think, for anesthesiologists, or do you think it's happening to other professions as well?
Well, I think it definitely is happening to other professions as well. Like I said in the introduction, we have a long experience within the dental industry as well, where we see, similar trends and dynamics. Time pressure,
yes.
Focusing on health outcome, at the same time being able to provide the right quality. That's definitely one of these issues, that are a concern and that are addressed in other areas as well, where it is dentistry or whether it is anesthesiology. My belief is that this is a common denominator which applies to several fields. And the risk, of course, is that if time becomes really an issue and time pressure is an issue, there is a potential risk associated with providing the right quality of medical care. And I think that is one of the key reasons, what we hear, and the key argumentations, what we hear, and when we have our communications with the physicians in different areas.
Absolutely. I mean, it almost is a challenge if you're a patient going to the hospital to understand that that mindset of that physician is in that space. It makes it very difficult for you to feel like you're getting quality. And so this is an important area that we're going to delve into in a little bit. Thank you, Arne. That's very, very helpful. So let's go into some of the other areas that we learned about. So this area, this question we asked is, in your opinion, is the practice of anesthesiology going in a positive direction or negative direction? And what we see is 16% say it's in a positive direction, which is a really small number. I thought anesthesiologists were well paid, did really good high quality work, which they do, which they clearly do. But then 16%, only 16%, and 28% believe it's going in a negative direction, while majority of them are on the fence. 56% of anesthesiologists say that it depends, it's mixed or both. They're not sure if the state of medicine for anesthesiology is going in a positive direction or in the negative direction. They're in the middle. This doesn't provide me much comfort, because it says that one more thing could tip anesthesiologists over the edge. So it's really a concerning issue. Then we ask them, well, what makes life satisfying for you? Professional reward and satisfaction, okay? What makes it worthwhile for you as an anesthesiologist? We asked them to please state to the extent which you agree or disagree with the following statements. And we talked to them about satisfaction and reward. And what we learned is 84% of anesthesiologists say that the skill and acumen of anesthesiologists is not currently being leveraged fully. Another 82% of them say, I'm not getting paid enough. Anesthesiologists' remuneration is moving in the wrong direction, the negative direction. Practicing anesthesiology is less rewarding today in the past. And half of them, not over, 50% exactly, I would not want my own child to pursue a career in anesthesiology. The respect I used to get was now declining. This slide gives us clues as to why anesthesiologists feel that their professional control, their control over their professional destiny is declining. I mean, this is a remarkable figure to me, is 84%, because it's saying that, you know what, I have a lot to offer as an anesthesiologist, but no one is tapping me on the shoulder and saying, come help me deliver great quality care where you need to. And that's a really troubling concern, troubling trend going forward. Arne, do you have any thoughts on this area of looking at the conditions that you might see in hospitals?
Yeah, I think for me, one, of course, it is alarming, like you say. If this is the trend, again, I want to emphasize this is not, our statement. It is all research that was conducted. So it is not our opinion. It is the opinion based on the research that we conducted. I think the trends that we are seeing here is also related with additional findings that you will present hereafter. I think it is not only a matter of the remuneration as such, but it is more a combination of time, pressure, challenges, innovation, the communication with the administration, being able to make decisions themselves, having the authority. So I think it's a good, this is a very good slide giving, the signal and the reasoning behind. There are numerous factors that result in this trend, I would say.
Great, thank you. So then we went into the relationship with CRNAs. And so what we asked physicians, anesthesiologists, please state to the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statements. And we gave a number, there were a number of statements presented. And what we see is 88% of them state that the devolution of duties to certified registered nurse anesthetists increases risk to patients. This was quite alarming for me. I didn't expect this figure to be so high. In fact, 96% of them say the devolution of duties to CRNAs threatens the anesthesiology profession for MD anesthesiologists. And what it signals to me, what it tells me is that there's a group of healthcare professionals, the CRNAs, that over the last several years have come in and started giving patient care in a way that anesthesiologists feel a threat. Now, they might work well in the hospital together, and they might be colleagues and best friends and really focused on delivering patient care, but there seems to be some sort of animosity between the professions because, well, you're taking away my job, you're taking away my responsibility, but it seems like there's more than that because what they're saying here is it increases risk to patients. This perception is something I did not expect. And I'd love to hear, if you're in the audience, you're a CRNA or an anesthesiologist, I'd love to know if you believe what these physicians are saying, if you agree with them or if you don't agree with them. So we're gonna get to that towards the end, but I'd like to know what you think about this particular piece. So then we asked about how your relationship is in the hospital. So we asked the physicians, anesthesiologists, a number of questions around the hospital and how you are interacting in the hospital. And the questions are again at the bottom. And what we see here is 94% say that I worry the field of anesthesiology is becoming increasingly controlled by non-medical forces. This is the issue of lack of autonomy, lack of control that we talked about in the beginning, where anesthesiologists feel like, look, I'm a doctor and I'm giving good quality care, but someone else is controlling and giving more a force and a push in a certain direction that's not medically focused, which is really interesting. And then 84% of anesthesiologists believe that hospital bureaucracy is impeding professional satisfaction and quality care. This is also concerning. They believe it's, the quality care is declining, which I'd love to learn a little bit more about this. And this is what we're hearing. Then we heard hospital administrators are imposing controls on anesthesiologists that negatively impact their performance. Now, I thought anesthesiologists were pretty free to do what they needed to do to care for the patient, but it appears that they don't perceive that they have the freedom. If you're looking at the word of imposing controls, right? They don't have the freedom to provide care in the way that they believe is necessary for the patient. Then 70% believe the hospital procurement, purchasing processes hold anesthesiologists back from having access to innovative technologies. This is troubling. If we can't give anesthesiologists best quality technology, that's troubling. 56% say that as an anesthesiologist, I don't feel empowered to make decisions on new technologies that could improve efficiencies, time, and quality care. This is an issue. And so I think what we heard is 96% also in this question of anesthesiologists believe they will need to take more of a leadership role in making decisions that will impact patient care to build a satisfying, rewarding future for the field of anesthesiology and anesthesiologists. Leadership is called for by this group of anesthesiologists who were surveyed. They want leadership back. They want to take back leadership of their profession, of their professional destiny. Then when we talk about time and pressure, we went a little bit deeper in the survey of anesthesiologists, board certified. Again, these are board certified anesthesiologists, and they're telling us is that hospital mandated time pressure on the anesthesiologists create unnecessary risk. From the time they're paged or called to go and perform the epidural labor and delivery procedure, the epidural, they feel that there's that time that they're being on the clock. Someone's starting the clock and they've got to rush and go and do that procedure, and that's creating unnecessary risk. That's 82%. 80% believe that the time pressures imposed on anesthesiologists by hospitals create undue stress and pressure. Again, risk, stress, pressure. And again, another question, 64% believe the risk profile of anesthesiologists has increased exponentially. We all know about liability and how doctors are under this threat of liability. What we hear today from anesthesiologists that were surveyed as part of the survey research is they believe that's actually the case. That's true, that there is a great risk and it is putting a lot of pressure on them. Then when we talk about implications for what they're doing in terms of epidural procedures specifically. Now, Milestone Scientific is in the business of producing product for epidural procedures. And what we ask here is some of the questions around how concerned are you that the following negatively impacts your colleagues, anesthesiology colleagues' success in performing epidural procedures as part of labor and delivery, okay? So we wanted some themes to understand some key themes on epidural procedures. And what we learned is 58% of the anesthesiologists believe that dural punctures is a major concern. 54% believe that interventions required post-catheter placement. Apparently, after the catheter is placed, there's got to be some interventions that have to be done. I'm not an anesthesiologist, but from the research, what we're learning is it's not just putting the catheter in, but it's the placement after the catheter has been in there. Is it staying in or not? Anesthesiologists are concerned about that. 50%, half, have this pressure on time. Again, time, risk, pressure. How fast the doctor can insert the epidural successfully into the patient from the time they're called. 50% of anesthesiologists are concerned about that. 48%, again, pressure on time to manage interventions post-placement. And then of course, 46% lack of certainty, confirmation the epidural space has been accessed. This is your space, Aryan. You are working with anesthesiologists in hospitals with a product that, so talk to us about what you're hearing from your anecdotal conversations with anesthesiologists as it relates to epidural procedures.
Yeah, so this information and based on these results, that was, you know, from us as a company, you can say that was encouraging, and I don't want to take the concern away, of course, absolutely not. But as you know, we have entered the epidural space with a disruptive technology that makes it possible to reduce the morbidity rates that are normally taking place with epidural procedures in labor and delivery, which is a morbidity rate of about 4.5 to 5% if we look into the literature. So that means 4.5 to 5% of all epidural procedures that are performed are associated with risk factors like severe migraine, transient paralysis, or even permanent paralysis, or even mortality, although that is rare. Secondly, when it comes to catheter placement, so after the woman giving birth and the woman is transported on a gurney back to her room, the catheter can be dislodged. And if in 40% after labor and delivery procedures, women are still in pain. And if they are still in pain, it either can mean that there's not enough, pain relief and drug in the patient, or that the catheter is dislodged. And the normal procedure would mean that you give a bolus injection and the physician has to wait 30 to 40 minutes to see if there's pain relief in the patient. With our technology, we are able to measure then the pulsatile waveform in an epidural space, which is correlated and confirmed that there is a direct correlation between seeing the pulsatile waveform and the right catheter placement, and that is within 2 minutes. So there's a lot of, and I know this is not a typical product and clinical discussion. I just want to highlight that for us it was important, based on this research, that we knew that the challenges that we see, the concerns that are there in particular in the anesthesiology market, we are addressing that, and we believe that we have the right solutions and are able to give the relief in this respect thereby also increasing health outcome and reducing costs. So this is definitely an area where we can partner together with the anesthesiology and take these concerns away.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. On the right-hand side of the slide, I think you summarized it very well, Arian. 84% believe that departments need to take more proactive measures to avoid this problem, of the catheter displacement or even dural punctures here. This is talking about dural punctures. And then 88% believe enhanced training for young anesthesiologists to ensure optimal placement to minimize dural punctures. So this dural punctures piece came up pretty high on the agenda of anesthesiologists. They might not see it themselves, but they believe colleagues are seeing this problem in our survey. And 96% believe that pushing new information systems to improve support and feedback loops for clinical decisions, such as monitoring of neuromuscular blockade. These are very important when it comes to satisfying and having a rewarding future for anesthesiologists. So I think you're right on the money here, Arian, when it comes to talking to anesthesiologists about how we can reduce risk in hospital and their settings. So let's talk a little bit about, so what's the future like, right? So we talked about issues, the problems, risk, time, pressure. So how do anesthesiologists move forward? I talk a lot about move forward in my work that I do in Embracing Change. So how do anesthesiologists move forward? So how important are these factors in building a satisfying and rewarding future for the field of anesthesiologists? This is what we ask anesthesiologists. And 100% of them, I've never seen numbers like that. I mean, this is really incredible. Yes, it's a small sample size of 50. It could have been 90%, it could have been 80%, but 100% of anesthesiologists say anesthesiologists must embrace change if the profession is to survive in the future. Another 100% say that we need to help the younger generation of anesthesiologists to be better prepared through educational and training programs and access to innovative technologies. 96%, to grow as a profession, anesthesiologists should embrace new advances in technologies and new way of doing things, okay? So anesthesiologists want to change technological innovation to improve speed and reliability, 94% of them. And 88% of anesthesiologists say that the field of anesthesiology needs new thought leadership, change, moving forward, leadership, speed and reliability, technology. These are all components of how anesthesiologists see as a way forward to move the profession forward, to make it more rewarding for all anesthesiologists in the profession. So that's the final slide. I want to open it up to Q&A. I want to quickly summarize, if I could, just go back to the core summary slide, if I might, for 1 minute, Arian, is that, as we talked about, anesthesiologists feel frustrated, stressed, time pressure, and the want to avoid risk to help deliver quality care for patients. All right, that's number one. Number two, they feel the pressure when it comes to the hospital setting from the bureaucracy in the hospital, that they don't have a say in what technologies get advanced to the procurement organization in the hospital. And ultimately, they believe that there are risks associated with when they're doing labor and delivery procedures when it comes to dural punctures, the catheter displacement, catheters going out of the patient, not delivering the drug, as Arian mentioned. And then finally, the way forward is that we need to embrace change. Anesthesiologists want to embrace change and believe new leadership is needed to move the profession forward, to make it satisfying, not only for the anesthesiologist profession, but driving quality care for patients. So that's sort of the summary slide. Arian, do you want to say one?
Yeah, I just want to make, yes, thank you, Bob. I just want to make one comment on one of your last slides on innovation and
Sure.
Embracing change. In particular, where there is the comments made training, education for residents, which is extremely important. I just want to highlight that in the extensive clinical studies that we have performed, that we were also able to provide confirmation of the following, because we know that residents in their residency program to becoming an anesthesiologist, especially for the epidural procedure, it might take up to 2 years or 90 procedures to be profound and confident in doing that procedure. And with our technology, we have been able to demonstrate that those 90 procedures are reduced to 2, and the 2 years to 2 days. So I just want to give that flavor, which means not only an efficiency or an increase in efficiency from a training education point of view, but a tremendous cost-saving opportunity for the teaching hospital institutions by reducing the training and education time, and thereby increasing also the efficiency, because the procedure and the technology that we have introduced in the United States and international as well shows that it is more than 99% effective on the first attempt. So it is, in a way, touching on all the alarming points that were mentioned early as part of the research outcome. And I think for us, it is a confirmation that what we normally already see with our interactions with the medical professionals, but also based on this research, there's a tremendous opportunity to turn around the concerns and the challenges together with the anesthesiologists if we are allowed to partner with them. So that would be my last statement in this respect.
No, that's great. Thank you, Arjen. And one of the questions I've seen in the chat from the audience is, talk to us about, the relationship of the anesthesiologist towards the hospital where they work in that setting. And so I'm wondering if we can dive into that a little bit. I mean, we heard a little bit that anesthesiologists feel this time pressure, this time pressure from the medical bureaucracy, if you will, the hospital bureaucracy. So someone wanted us to elaborate a little bit on that. And what we've seen is that, a lot of physicians in my experience, I've worked a lot with physicians over the years, medical associations and societies over the years in my career. And one of the things I realize, and I love physicians for, it's a very noble cause, right? It's the only profession that heals and helps us when we're sick. And we've seen that come through with COVID-19. They're in the front line of hospitals. But a lot of that ability rests on their ability to have autonomy, right? They know the patient, they know the disease, they know the illness better than anybody because they're at that front line. And so that lack of autonomy is something that really tugs at their heart. And what we've seen in this study from anesthesiologists is that, 94% of them believe that it's being controlled by non-medical forces. So those folks who may not have a medical degree, those folks, those colleagues who might be controlling the purse strings, for example. And so I think in one sense, it's this desire, and we could talk a little bit about this, Ari, in the relationship with the hospital and the process that they have to go through. Maybe it's this desire to kind of step into a new role where anesthesiologists can be advocates, right? So not necessarily pushing an agenda, but really advocating for new advances to help patients, right? So it's not necessarily about them saying, I want control. It's not that. It's that they want autonomy to help the patient, not to help themselves, because physicians are the most selfless, profession that I've ever seen. They work so hard in training and medical training to do what they're to help patients. And so let's talk a little bit about, Arjen, if you will, how they see their relationship evolving over the next, year, a couple of years as they look at their relationship with the hospital.
Yeah, so I think in this respect, we have to add several dimensions. I completely agree with your comment and the rationale as you explained to us, right? Absolutely right. So we can say that from the clinician's perspective, the clinical outcome, the patient care, increasing safety, reducing pain, increasing healthcare outcome is top priority, right? And I think the challenge then, of course, is internally within the hospital setting is that the decision-making factor is also related with a saving impact, right? And so it means that it is not only the clinical outcome, but also the health economy or the cost benefit analysis or the cost benefit challenges and advantages of any new technology needs to be presented. Now, it can be done by the anesthesiologist, but it is a unique opportunity for us together with the anesthesiologist that we also actively invite to do that together. So for us as from a company point of view, we have to help and support together visiting that internal environment with the purchase department, supply chain, the pharmacy, or even higher up in the hospital administration to make sure that we can reduce that decision-making process from a timing point of view. Like, for example, we conducted a study where we compared our technology with the loss of resistance technology that is currently the standard of care in epidural procedures. And we did about 4,483 data points or patients that have been included. And the conclusion was that there is a cost saving when our technology is used. There's a cost saving of more than $500, to be precise, $504 per patient when our technology is used versus the loss of resistance technology. Now, if it is a hospital doing, let's say, 6,000 epidurals, that's an immediately cost saving of $3 million, right? And that type of information is also something that needs to be brought to the administration of the hospital so that the anesthesiology immediately also gets the support internally that there is an interest of any new technology, not only on the clinical outcome, which is in a way the most important part, because whatever we can do to increase healthcare outcome, that should be top of mind. But yes, the money part is also an issue. And I think there is a unique role for us together, partner, liaise with the anesthesiologist to convince, to communicate with the value assessment committee, the value assessment teams, the purchasing department, so that we are helping the anesthesiologists to have access to those new technologies faster than what is currently happening.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Thank you, Arjen. That's very helpful. We have another question from Tumas about burnout. And so any insights on how burnout is impacting the profession? And so that's the real issue, one big question. So Tumas, thank you so much for your question. We saw a little sort of the different dimension to burnout in the study. But what we've seen when we led up to this research, we did some anecdotal research in the profession. What we're seeing a couple of things. One, I think in terms of burnout is there seems to be, and I haven't seen this specifically for anesthesiologists, but I've seen it for medical profession generally, is that they're retiring early. So burnout, especially with COVID in 2020, a lot of physicians are closing up practices, okay? They just don't want to do it anymore. They were going to retire in 5 years. They're saying, well, I want to retire now. But I think the majority, the second thing is the majority are sort of resigned to, well, let's just continue doing what we're doing. And this just is this circular effect, which causes mental illness, despair, lack of, sort of feeling of hopelessness that we've seen in the medical profession overall. So I'm not saying anything specifically for anesthesiologists, but I would suspect, Tumas, that maybe you can comment on this, is that I'd love to get your perspectives as well, Arjen, is that a lot of anesthesiologists, because they're not now, social interactions have declined for everyone, right? Because we can't talk to people, you have to be socially distancing, so on. And so what does that mean for anesthesiologists, for a profession that used to have a team, and they still have that team in the hospital to perform the procedures? Are they less likely to have interactions because of the fear of COVID? And so what does that do to mental well-being of anesthesiologists? But to answer your question, I think we haven't seen anything specific in this study too much about burnout and what the impact is. What we've seen anecdotally in physicians is retiring early, shrugging it and saying, okay, I've just got to kind of resign myself and keep doing what I'm doing, and for the sake of the patient. But also this spiral of mental health decline that could be associated with that. So I think that burnout is a real issue, and anesthesiologists are not alone in that burnout. But Aryan, have you seen or heard in your dealings with anesthesiologists about burnout?
I have not heard in particular burnout to that respect. As you say as well, it was not sort of a call out of this research, but I would agree with you that if you look at in the beginning of our of sharing the results, and you see of all the stress factors that are associated, and also what I see in the interactions with anesthesiologists, it's tremendous long days. It is, it goes like this. There's hardly any time to stop up,
Right.
and there's a very high expectation level as well within the hospitals. And of course, we cannot exclude what is happening in the environment, unfortunately, still facing the pandemic that has a lot of consequences for all healthcare providers, right? So I would say with the findings that we have seen and looking at the trend and looking at the concerns, just from a human being point of view, the next step would be a burnout. I would put it in that way. Sure. But again, we didn't look into details to that extent. It was not a specific call out, but it's definitely, I would agree with you, it's definitely there.
Yeah. And I think I've seen in social media a lot of anesthesiologists. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I see anesthesiologists that I follow are not working in hospitals anymore. They're going to a startup, they're going to different companies and organizations where they feel they're getting more value. Maybe it's a money issue, because I don't know how much they get paid for labor delivery, but that could be a part of it. It's sort of like, okay, I'm being called, I have to rush, I don't get paid that much, I don't have the social interactions anymore that I used to, or feel this status, in society, to be respected. So all of these are contributing factors to potentially changing professions. But I do think from our survey, what we've heard is that a lot of anesthesiologists sort of say, well, okay, I know it's tough, but what are you going to do? I know somebody needs to do something, so they have this desire, but they kind of resign themselves, and they kind of, shrug. And so that's the problem. If you're feeling, is frustrated, well, there has to be some action associated with it. And this is what I think the call to action, if you will, is for anesthesiologists to say, look, yes, and this is what they tell us. It's not Bob McLeod saying it or Aryan saying it. It's what anesthesiologists saying is leadership has to be there. We can no longer, and this is the anesthesiologist saying is, we can no longer sit idly by and let the profession crumble. We need to move forward, embrace change, take leadership, and sort of do things that are important for the patient. That's really what it's about. So thank you for that question, Thomas. Thank you so much. So I just want to point out additional resources. And I don't know if we have any more questions. We'll check with Aubrey in a second, but there's additional resources. Milestone Scientific sponsored the study. Schlesinger Group was the market research company that did the study, that fielded the study. You could follow Milestone on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you have any questions, and if you'd like to talk to Aryan about having his team present these findings to a grand rounds at anesthesiologists, or a conference, or a lunch and learn, or a journal club for anesthesiologists, please contact him at jahaberhalls@milestonescientific.com. So I'm going to just now stop and hand it back over to Aryan. I don't think we have any more questions, Aryan, but I want to leave you with the final goodbyes. Thank you.
Yeah. No, again, thanks everybody for your time and joining us on this webinar. Bob, thank you for guiding us through the results. There's a lot of data, and it's always important to catch the highlights. And I would be more than pleased and happy to provide any further information, any assistance, any telephone calls, any presentations, whatever. And if you need that, please reach out to the provided details that were mentioned on the last slide, either by visiting our website at www.milestonescientific.com or at my email address, jhaverals@milestonescientific.com, or my mobile telephone number. We will also follow up with information after this call, and thanking you again for your time and providing part of the information of the research so that you can always read it back. So bye for now. Thanks for your time, and looking forward to follow up with you individually. Have a great Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.